Hello there, I'm Jazz Singh, and this is my fourth reflection for my PIDP3260 course. The topic I'll be reflecting on today is Chapter 8 from Brookfield textbook, and the chapter is entitled Teaching in Diverse Classrooms. So by diversity, Brookfield not only refers to the racial and cultural diversity we see in today's classroom, but rather the diversity among learners also. So things like personality, learning styles, and learning preferences. So the first time I saw the title of the chapter, a couple of things came to mind. First, I've been lucky enough to teach a wide array of international students in my career. So when you get students from many different backgrounds in the classroom, it makes for some interesting discussion. One memorable example of this is when I was teaching my students how to do a bank rec. And as part of a bank rec, I was talking about bound checks, what they were and how you deal with them. And immediately I saw a few students of mine just perk up. And they went on to tell me that bound checks were illegal in their country. And even if you wrote one by mistake, you would go to jail for it. So that ended up being a very interesting discussion for me. The second kind of strategy that I use to make sure I keep things as clear as possible for international students, especially in entry level accounting classes when they might not be too familiar with local businesses and Canadian business models, is I use inclusive examples. So the example I really like to use in my entry level courses is the college bookstore. And this is the example I come to over and over again as I teach accounting concepts. The reason why this example works well is because I know that all the students in the classroom are familiar with the bookstore model because they buy textbooks being students, and it makes life easy for them because it's one less thing they have to learn. Um, Rather than learn about how the entire business works, they have to focus on learning the specific accounting concepts, whatever that might be. As I go to higher level classes, accounting and finance, I tend to use a wider breadth of business examples. So, the one thing I've really taken away from this chapter is we should work to minimize bias in the classroom. And by bias, I mean the tendency to cater towards the local students. And this is not necessarily we do something, it's not something we do consciously, but rather something that's embedded in us. As we go to the Western education system, we become accustomed to certain teaching methods, which we are most familiar with and which we feel work best and which we are most comfortable with. However, a 2016 University of Arizona article, which someone was uh, gracious enough to post in the forum as a reply to one of my posts. So thank you for that. It goes over 5 instructional strategies we can use to limit bias in the classroom. And I want to focus on 2 of them. The first one is to use a variety of instructional strategies. So, as I discussed, some students have different learning preferences or they have different personalities, introvert or extrovert, so they learn better in some ways which we do not feel work best. By giving students different options on how they can choose to learn, you're putting you're making students responsible for their own learning and you're creating a more effective learning environment. So I agree with that one a lot. The second one is group work. So in a diverse classroom, students bring different things to the table. So by putting them in a group and having them work with each other and learn from each other and collaborate, you're taking the onus off yourself. You're having students work in a different environment where their role is expanded from just being a learner to a collaborator and a teacher for other students. Continuing on with the group work idea, there's another interesting article from the University of Waterloo, which discusses a variety of techniques which we can use to create effective group work. So it goes from planning carefully to giving thought to how you want to put the groups together, uh, to explaining and rationalizing your decision to include group work in the course to the student so they see value in it, and also not hovering over the students as they do the group work. You want to keep an eye on them, but you want to kind of position yourself as a facilitator of learning. So finally, to the decisional section, there are three things I really want to do. One, I want to gauge diversity levels. So Brookfield talked about a variety of ways of doing this, simply by a show of hands or doing written surveys or just having students introduce themselves. So this not only helps you create an effective teaching strategy for the classroom, it also helps you put together great groups. So you can put students together who you think will work best together. Another thing that Brookfield talks about is team teaching. So what he's referring to is having someone else, preferably from a different background than yourself, come in and address the class. So this might be a little bit tricky to do because of scheduling and prior commitments for faculty members, but I think students can be involved in this. So by having students do some of the teaching, you're actually giving everybody, the audience, the class, a different voice other than your own. So that's something I would like to try. And finally, last but not least, I want to have more learning options, right? I believe that this is something that's becoming essential in today's society, of a more diverse classroom. We also have more tools for this, right? With the internet, we can have all resources students can access outside of the classroom, so there's no reason not to do this. So I want to create uh, a wide array of learning options for my students. A quick look at my references here, and thank you very much.